In this video, I am looking for some feedback or input from the experts out there that have maybe done some work with the ISA bus before. I am looking into what would it take for me to implement a subset of the ISA system architecture in my system. As kind of a recap, here is my current schematic, and I can zoom into this and see that I've got my processor over here, and that set of connections, this seems to be coming together pretty well. And I've talked through the clock generator and the bus controller, the interrupt controller. I've been using this PSOC for different address decoding. I have my data transceivers for the data bus. I've got the address latches for the address bus. If I take a look over to the right, I've got my ROM and my RAM sitting here. And then most recently, as I scroll down, I've added these PPIs for an LCD and PS2 keyboard input. In my previous builds, whether it's my 6502 build or my 65816 build, I've had add-in cards, and I've used the ISA, basically a 16-bit ISA slot as a physical way, but I've been using my own approach to what signals I put on that physical slot, and that's worked great. And I'm not following the ISA protocol by any means. It's just simply a physical connector. But on this build, as I'm working with the 286, it seems appropriate that I would try to actually use the ISA system architecture. I do have a video card that I would like to modify so that it does follow the ISA system architecture, so I could plug it in. Also, I have a sound card. I might do the same thing, or maybe I might have an I/O card that adds, I don't know, let's say SPI connectivity. So I'm just starting to read up on this ISA system architecture, and I've actually ordered a book titled ISA System Architecture by Shanley and Anderson. So I'll see how that book helps me get a little bit better up to speed, and in the meantime I'm reading up on the ISA specification. But I did, in my schematic, add in the ISA slot. And so here you can see I've got a 16-bit ISA slot that I've added. And I'm considering just using a subset of capabilities for now, and maybe later I can expand that. And the major thing is no DMA support. So a lot of what I see for pins on the left are related to DMA requests and acknowledgement, and maybe in my simple starter system here, I'm just not going to support that direct memory access from different I/O cards. And I think that's something I can come back to later and expand the system design to do something like that. And I believe there's additional ICs then that I'd have to get in and figure out how to use if I'm going to get into DMA. As far as my video card, I'm actually using dual port RAM, dual port static RAM. So I'm not worried about direct memory access there, because I'll handle communication between the 286 processor and the rest of the video card through that dual port memory. But this is what I am thinking about doing, so I'm kind of looking for feedback. I'm not going to connect the -5 volt or any of the 12 volt power rails. I just don't use those in my add-in cards. My intention is not to pull some, other ISA card off of eBay or something and try to make it work in my system. I'm just trying to do this for my own cards that I put in, and I'm just going to be using a +5 volt for my VCC. I've connected all of the signals that I believe are tying to what I have in my system already. I'm going to use IRQs 3 through 7. That's fine. The higher IRQs I'm not going to support because I only have a single interrupt controller, and I'm going to try to keep it simple to that for now. Maybe later I can add a second slave interrupt controller and add these additional IRQs. I've got all my bus data and address lines to the right. I've got the different read and write signals for I/O and memory, ready, NMI, reset, AL. It seems like I've got enough here that I could control my video card as an example, or my sound card. My sound card, the way it is built, is also with a small amount of dual port memory to send commands basically to the sound card, and the sound card can send information back to the processor, and it can also raise out interrupts. So I think I've got enough here for signals on this bus to make this work. Something I don't know where it comes into play yet. There's this oscillator, a 14 megahertz oscillator. I don't know if that's just if cards need to use it. I don't have any cards that would need to use it. My sound card has its own oscillators on it. But I'm looking for thoughts. Am I majorly overlooking something here? Any suggestions or guidance from any of you that have done this? Are there specific resources you found really helpful when you get into ISA and implementation of ISA? And does my proposal here seem realistic, that I could implement a subset of the ISA 16-bit, still be following the ISA standard minus, DMA support and these higher IRQ numbers? And maybe that makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but definitely leave me a comment in the comments below if you have thoughts one way or another. And I'm hoping at some point in the future I can actually connect in an ISA slot.